All right, what we're going to be doing is conic sections, the circle. Now, quick review, geometric definition relies on a cone and a plane intersecting it, and the algebraic definition is a set of points in the plane that are equidistant from a fixed point in the plane. All right, so now if we look at this, find the distance from the center of the circle. Okay, the center, HK, if you're looking at this here, HK, H being the x or x variable, and then K being the y for the center. So that's how you set it up. Whatever the center is the x is your h value, and then the k is your y value. Now, the other thing you got to actually find on this is you got to find the actual radius for the circle in order to actually set up the formula. Now, what they have is the distance formula on here. You can do the distance formula if you want, and to find out the radius. But the way I usually do it is I set up the Pythagorean theorem. It's much easier. Okay, but if you look at it, really the distance formula is a variation of the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, the way you can do this, if you look at it, and if you look at this as A, and then this is B, and then over here is C, well, guess what? You have a right triangle right here, and all you have to do is set up a Pythagorean theorem to get it. Well, how do you get this value here? Well, all you do is you take the x value over here minus the x value here, the h, which if you look at it, seems to be the same right here. And then to get the y value, all you do is you take the y value minus the k value. Well, wow, it looks just like this over here. Well, the distance formula is pretty much a variation of the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so all you have to do is you have to set up the Pythagorean theorem, and you can actually get the distance between the center and a point on the circle, wherever it may be. Now, it says square both sides to get the general form of a circle and the radius form. Okay, if we look at this, here is the actual formula for the circle. Okay, so if you look at the R right here is the radius, the H being the center, the X value for the center, and the K being the Y value for the center. Now, what does this formula actually really give you? Well, if you think about it, all it does is it gives you every single, or it can give you every single point on the circle. That's it. So if you know X value, like if you guys remember linear equations, you put your X value in and you get your Y value out, right? Well, that's pretty much the same thing. What's going on here is you can, if you know an X value, you can get your two Y values for the center of the circle. So if I know the X value for here, well, it's going to give me my two Y values for that X value right there. That's all this does. That's it. It gives you every point, or gives you a point, or multiple points for the circle. That's it. Excuse me. All right, now, two things that you really need in order to do the formula. Well, you need to know the center. Second thing is you need to know the radius. That's it. All right, so some things we need to look at. Both variables are squared. Equation of a circle in center radius form right here. And what makes the circle different from a line? Well, remember a line is mx plus b, right? And equals y. So that's the equation for a line. Well, first off, if I look at this, none of mx plus b is squared at all. Okay. Second thing, you don't really need the slope in the circle, where on a line you need the slope. So that's the equation. So that's pretty much a big difference. And the second thing is for a line, you're only gonna, if you put in one x value, you're only going to get one y value back, right? Well, in the circle, you possibly could get two y values back. Okay. What makes the circle different from a parabola? Well, a parabola is only one of them are squared, either the y or the x is squared, where the circle, both the x and the y are squared. So that's a big difference there between the two. All right, so here's where the bread and butter come in. And let's go ahead and go through this. We got x minus 3 squared, and then we got plus y plus 1 squared equals 16. All right, so how do I determine what the center of this circle is? Well, it's easy. If I look at this, remember the formula is x minus h in parentheses squared, right? Well, if I look at that, well, the h value is going to be 3. And then remember the other part of the formula is y minus k, right? Well, if I look at this, the only way this could be plus is it's got to be negative. So my center is got to be 3 negative 1. And then it's r squared. Well, 16, or square root of 16 is 4. All right, so if I look at the next one, it's going to be negative 5, positive 2, and the square root of 15. The next one's a little bit tricky, right? Because they don't have it set up in the formula or format like they should. So what you have to do is you have to add this minus 9 to both sides of the equation. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to put plus 9. Plus 9. Okay, so these cancel out. Now I have it set up in my equation. So if I look at it, it's going to be 0, positive 2, and then the radius is going to be 3. All right, so if I write an equation of a circle centered at 2, negative 7, having a radius of 5. Well, if I think about it, it's going to be x minus 2 squared plus y plus 7 squared equals 25. Okay, because remember it's negative k. So if I put this in, that would be y minus negative 7. Two negatives, when they are next to each other, it equals a positive. All right, so if I look at this one here, this would be positive 2, negative 1, and with a radius of 6. And then the last one, which would be negative 1, positive 3, with a radius of 5. All right, here's where the hard part comes. And be honest with you, after you did the parabolas, hopefully you kind of got this by now. It's completing the square. Something what everybody has trouble with. Even you've been introduced to it sophomore year. I showed it to you guys last year in AA, and then now you got it again in pre-calc. Okay, every year people have trouble with it, so please pay attention. I'll try to explain it as best I can. First thing, completing the square. The procedure. What you want to do is you want to get all the x values on one side, or correction, all the x values together, all the y values grouped together, and then whatever's left over, you kick it over to the other side of the equation. Okay, so after you do that, you leave these spaces here. Now, well, the next step is you take whatever this middle number, this middle term here, and you divide it by 2. So let me erase that. So divide it by 2. Which equals 3. And then you square it, which equals 9. All right, so that's a step. You divide it by 2, and then you square it. So 6 divided by 2 equals 3. 3 squared equals 9. The next one, you do the same thing. So this -4 right here. So you go through and you divide it by 2. Which equals -2. And then you square it. Oops, there you go. Square it. And which equals +4. Okay, so now this is what they have, and let me erase it so you can see a little bit better. So this is what they have on their next step, is they got +9 and +4 here, right? And that's what we came up with because we divided those terms by 2 and then we squared it, right? Well, that's how they came up with this 9, and that's how they came up with the 4. Well, in math, whenever you do something to one side of an equation, you have to do it to the other side of the equation. So over here, this is how they got +9 and +4 over here, because whenever you do something to one side, you have to do it to the other side in order to balance it out. Okay, so now you're thinking, all right, I'm good so far, I get it. Divide by 2 and then square it. Here's where people usually get lost. You want it in circle formula, right? And you want to condense that thing down. You want to make it into a circle equation. Well, this is how you do it. All you do is you look at this middle term here, and you divide it by 2. That's it. Okay, this middle term here, and divide it by 2. Okay, let me get that 6 over there, try to write. There you go. Okay, and when you do that, you end up with 3, and then this one, you end up with -2, right? Okay, so let's see how they did it. Well, guess what? They have x plus 3, so they put it in that format, and all they did was to figure out what number for h to put in there. What they did is they took this middle number again and divided by 2. This one here, they take the middle number again and divide it by 2, and then they got it in circle format. That's all you have to do. So once again, I'll reiterate. The first steps initially is you group the x values together and then the y values together. Everything else goes to the other side of the equation. Second step, you take the middle term, or what will be the middle term, divide it by 2 and then square it. Then you go over to the y. You take what will be the middle term, which is where it has y to the first power. You divide it by 2 and then square it. Whatever you get, you have to put in the blank, and then you have to kick it over to the other side to add to the other side of the equation as well. Now, I want to condense this thing back down, right? I want to condense it back down. So the way I condense it back down is I look at this middle term and divide it by 2, and then that's how I get it into this format right here. Same thing over here. I look at this middle term and divide it by 2, and that's how I put it in this format right here. And over here, you already have it as 5 or 25, and you can put it as 5 squared. That would be your radius would be 5. All right, and hopefully that kind of clears some of the confusion. So now, if I were to actually draw this, if I look at it, my equation is going to be at -3, +2. So that's going to be at my center right here. And if I count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That'd be my radius. That's it.